What began as a seemingly ordinary evening turned into a nightmare when Vanessa discovered an unspeakable betrayal involving her own father and her 12-year-old daughter, Lily. Overcome with rage and desperation, Vanessa took matters into her own hands, leading to a violent confrontation that would change her life forever. This story is not just about a crime, it's about the lengths a parent will go to protect their child, the emotional toll of betrayal, and the complex questions of justice that arise in the aftermath. Stay with us as we uncover the details of this harrowing case, the courtroom drama that followed, and the lasting impact on everyone involved. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more gripping stories from True Crime Stories Arena. Vanessa Larkins was a 34-year-old single mother living in Clearwater, Florida, a town known for its warm weather and close-knit community. She was a hard-working nurse, juggling long shifts at a local clinic while raising her two children, 15-year-old Ethan and 12-year-old Lily. Life had never been easy for Vanessa, but she faced every challenge with determination and an unwavering love for her kids. Lily, her youngest, was born with a developmental condition that required extra care and attention. Vanessa devoted herself to ensuring Lily had everything she needed, from therapy sessions to a supportive home environment. Despite the demands of her job and the challenges of single parenthood, Vanessa found joy in the small moments, helping Lily with her schoolwork, cheering Ethan on at his soccer games, and spending quiet evenings with her children. Vanessa's father, Jerry Larkins, had recently re-entered her life after years of estrangement. Jerry, a retired truck driver in his early 60s, had a complicated history with his daughter. He had been absent for much of Vanessa's childhood, leaving her mother to raise her alone. But when Jerry reached out, claiming he wanted to make amends and be a part of his grandchildren's lives, Vanessa decided to give him a second chance. Jerry moved into the family's modest home on Magnolia Lane, and at first it seemed like a positive change. He helped with household chores, spent time with the kids, and even bonded with Lily over her love of puzzles and board games. Vanessa hoped that this was the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to rebuild the relationship she had always longed for with her father. But as the weeks went by, Vanessa began to notice subtle changes in Jerry's behavior. He was overly attentive to Lily, often volunteering to watch her when Vanessa was at work. While she initially saw this as a sign of his commitment to being a better grandfather, certain moments left her feeling uneasy. There were times when Jerry's interactions with Lily seemed overly familiar, but Vanessa dismissed her concerns, convincing herself that she was being overly protective. Vanessa's life was already filled with stress. Between her demanding job, financial struggles, and the constant care Lily required, she had little time to dwell on her suspicions. She wanted to believe that Jerry had changed, that he truly wanted to be a part of their lives for the right reasons. After all, wasn't forgiveness supposed to be a virtue? Vanessa clung to the hope that her father's presence would bring stability to their family, not chaos. Ethan, Vanessa's teenage son, was less convinced. He had always been wary of Jerry, finding his sudden interest in their lives suspicious. Ethan often voiced his concerns to his mother, but Vanessa brushed them off, chalking it up to typical teenage rebellion. She didn't want to believe that her father, who had promised to make amends, could have ulterior motives. The turning point came on a humid July evening. Vanessa had just finished a grueling double shift at the clinic and was looking forward to a quiet night at home. She arrived to find Ethan in his room, headphones on, engrossed in a video game. But when she called out for Lily, there was no response. Vanessa assumed her daughter was with Jerry, as they often spent time together in the evenings. As she walked through the house, Vanessa felt a growing sense of unease. The living room was empty, the backyard was silent, and Lily's favorite stuffed animal, a small, worn bunny she never went anywhere without, was lying on the floor. Vanessa's heart began to race as she made her way down the hallway to Lily's bedroom. The door was slightly open, and she could hear muffled voices inside. Pushing the door open, Vanessa was met with a sight that would forever change her life. Jerry was in the room with Lily, and what he was doing was beyond comprehension. In that moment, Vanessa's world came crashing down. The man she had trusted, the man she had allowed into her home, had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. Vanessa's reaction was immediate and visceral. She screamed at Jerry, who stumbled back, his face pale and his hands trembling. Lily, frightened and confused, ran to her mother, tears streaming down her face. Vanessa held her daughter tightly, her mind racing with a mix of rage, disbelief and heartbreak. The betrayal was too much to bear. Years of unresolved pain, anger and frustration boiled to the surface. Vanessa's trust had been shattered, and the man responsible was standing right in front of her. What happened next would leave a permanent mark on her family and the community they called home. Vanessa stood frozen in the doorway of Lily's room, her mind struggling to process the horrifying scene before her. The betrayal was overwhelming, and the rage that followed was unlike anything she had ever felt. Her father, the man she had allowed back into her life, had crossed a line that no one could ever come back from. In that moment, Vanessa's protective instincts as a mother took over, and her only thought was to shield her daughter from further harm. Jerry, realizing he had been caught, began stammering excuses, his voice shaky and desperate. "It's not what it looks like," he muttered, backing away from Vanessa and Lily. But his words only fueled Vanessa's anger. She could see the guilt in his eyes, the fear on his face, and it confirmed everything she needed to know. There was no misunderstanding, no explanation that could justify what she had witnessed. Vanessa's hands trembled as she guided Lily out of the room and into Ethan's care. "Take your sister to your room and lock the door," she instructed her son, her voice firm but shaking with emotion. Ethan, sensing the gravity of the situation, didn't ask questions. He took Lily's hand and led her away, leaving Vanessa alone with Jerry. As the door to Ethan's room clicked shut, Vanessa turned her attention back to her father. The man who had once promised to make amends, to be a better grandfather, now stood before her as a monster. Her mind raced with memories of her childhood, of the times Jerry had abandoned her, of the pain his absence had caused, and now he had brought that same pain into her children's lives. Vanessa stormed into the kitchen, her vision blurred by tears of rage. She grabbed a knife from the counter, her grip tightening around the handle as she marched back into the living room where Jerry stood. He raised his hands in a feeble attempt to calm her down, but his words fell on deaf ears. "Vanessa, please, let's talk about this," he pleaded, his voice trembling, but there was no reasoning with her. The betrayal was too deep, the pain too raw. Vanessa's mind was consumed by a single thought: protecting her children at all costs. The confrontation escalated quickly. Jerry tried to step toward her, but Vanessa lashed out, the knife in her hand slicing through the air. The first strike was fueled by pure instinct, a mother's primal need to defend her child. But as the reality of what he had done sank in, Vanessa's anger grew, and the strikes became more forceful, more deliberate. Jerry tried to fight back, but he was no match for Vanessa's fury. Years of pent-up frustration, betrayal, and heartbreak poured out with every movement. By the time Vanessa stopped, Jerry lay motionless on the floor, his body lifeless and covered in blood. The room was silent except for Vanessa's heavy breathing and the distant sound of Ethan comforting Lily in the other room. Vanessa dropped the knife, her hands shaking as she stared at what she had done. The living room, once a place of family gatherings and laughter, was now a scene of chaos. Blood stained the carpet and walls, and furniture had been knocked over in the struggle. Vanessa sank to her knees, her mind racing with a mix of emotions: relief that her children were safe, guilt over what she had done, and fear of what would happen next. Ethan, hearing the commotion die down, cautiously opened the door to his room. He found his mother sitting on the floor, her hands covered in blood, staring blankly at the lifeless body of her father. He whispered, his voice trembling. Vanessa looked up at her son, her eyes filled with tears. "Call the police," she said softly. "Tell them what happened." Ethan hesitated for a moment before nodding. He picked up the phone and dialed 911, his voice shaking as he explained the situation to the dispatcher. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air, and flashing lights illuminated the street outside their home. When the police arrived, Vanessa didn't resist. She calmly explained what had happened, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I had to protect my daughter," she told the officers. "I had no choice." The officers took Vanessa into custody, while paramedics examined Ethan and Lily to ensure they were unharmed. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering among themselves as they watched the scene unfold. The once quiet street was now the center of a tragedy that would leave a lasting impact on everyone involved. The events of that night sent shockwaves through the Clearwater community. News of the crime spread quickly, and the Larkins family became the center of public attention. Neighbors who had once admired Vanessa for her dedication to her children were now grappling with the reality of what had happened inside her home. Some were sympathetic, believing she had acted out of desperation to protect her daughter. Others were less forgiving, arguing that no one had the right to take another person's life, no matter the circumstances. Vanessa's arrest marked the beginning of a long and emotionally charged legal battle. She was charged with second-degree murder, and the case quickly became a media sensation. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, eager to capture every detail of the trial. Headlines painted Vanessa in starkly different lights. Some called her a protective mother pushed to the brink, while others labeled her a cold-blooded killer. The prosecution argued that Vanessa's actions were excessive and premeditated. They claimed that while her anger was understandable, she had crossed a line by taking the law into her own hands. The lead prosecutor emphasized the brutality of the crime, pointing out the sheer number of stab wounds, 77 in total, as evidence of Vanessa's intent to kill. The defense, however, painted a very different picture. They portrayed Vanessa as a devoted mother who had been pushed to her breaking point by an unimaginable betrayal. Her attorney argued that her actions were not premeditated, but rather the result of a temporary loss of control brought on by the shock and trauma of discovering her father's abuse. Psychologists testified about the effects of trauma and how Vanessa's protective instincts as a mother had overridden her ability to think rationally in the moment. The courtroom was filled with emotional testimony from both sides. Friends and co-workers spoke of Vanessa's kindness and dedication to her family, describing her as a woman who had always put her children's needs above her own. Ethan, now 15, took the stand to defend his mother, recounting the events of that night with a mix of sadness and resolve. "She did what she thought she had to do to protect us," he told the jury. "She's not a bad person. She's a mum who loves her kids." The prosecution also called witnesses, including law enforcement officers and forensic experts, to detail the crime scene and the extent of Jerry's injuries. They argued that while Vanessa's anger was justified, her actions were not. This was not self-defense, the prosecutor stated during closing arguments. This was a deliberate act of violence. As the trial progressed, the public's opinion remained divided. Social media was flooded with debates about the case, with some users rallying behind Vanessa and others condemning her actions. Advocacy groups for victims of abuse voiced their support for her, arguing that the justice system often fails to protect vulnerable children and their families. Meanwhile, others questioned whether Vanessa's actions had set a dangerous precedent, blurring the line between justice and revenge. The jury deliberated for several days, weighing the emotional testimony and legal arguments presented during the trial. When they finally returned with a verdict, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Vanessa was found guilty of manslaughter, a lesser charge than the second-degree murder she had initially faced. The judge sentenced her to 10 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 5 years. The sentence was met with mixed reactions. Some felt it was too lenient, arguing that Vanessa's actions had been excessively violent and that she should have faced a harsher punishment. Others believed the sentence was fair, considering the circumstances of the crime and the trauma Vanessa had endured. For Vanessa, the verdict was bittersweet. While she would spend years behind bars, she took solace in knowing that her children were safe and that her actions had put an end to the threat her father posed. Ethan and Lily were placed in the care of a close family friend who ensured they received the support and counseling they needed to process the events they had witnessed. Vanessa maintained regular contact with her children from prison, writing them letters and speaking to them on the phone whenever she could. She used her time behind bars to reflect on her actions and to advocate for victims of abuse, sharing her story in the hopes of raising awareness about the challenges faced by families in similar situations. Vanessa's case left a lasting impact, not only on her family, but also on the broader community and the legal system. It became a story that sparked conversations about justice, morality, and the lengths to which a parent will go to protect their child. For many, Vanessa's actions were a tragic example of how trauma and betrayal can push even the most loving and devoted individuals to their breaking point. In the months following her sentencing, Vanessa's story continued to make headlines. Advocacy groups for victims of abuse rallied around her, using her case to highlight the systemic failures that often leave vulnerable children unprotected. They argued that Vanessa's actions, while extreme, were a direct result of a system that had failed to prevent the abuse in the first place. No parent should ever have to take matters into their own hands to protect their child, one advocate stated during a televised interview. "This case is a wake-up call for all of us." Vanessa herself became a symbol of both the complexities of justice and the resilience of the human spirit. From her prison cell, she began writing letters to organizations that supported victims of abuse, sharing her story and offering words of encouragement to others who were struggling. She also participated in counseling sessions, working through the trauma of her father's betrayal and the guilt she felt over her actions. "I don't regret protecting my daughter," she wrote in one letter, "but I do regret the pain my actions have caused my family. I wish there had been another way." Ethan and Lily, meanwhile, were slowly rebuilding their lives with the help of their guardian and a team of therapists. Ethan, who had always been protective of his younger sister, took on a more mature role in the family, ensuring that Lily felt safe and supported. Lily, though deeply affected by the events, showed remarkable resilience. Her therapy sessions focused on helping her process her emotions and rebuild her sense of security. Over time, she began to smile again, finding comfort in the love and support of those around her. The community of Clearwater also struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. Neighbors who had once seen Vanessa as a dedicated mother now viewed her with a mix of sympathy and unease. Some organized fundraisers to support Ethan and Lily, while others avoided discussing the case altogether, unsure of how to reconcile their feelings about what had happened. The Larkins family home on Magnolia Lane remained empty, a silent reminder of the night that had changed everything. Vanessa's case also had a ripple effect on the legal system. Lawmakers and advocacy groups began pushing for reforms to better protect children from abuse and to provide more support for families in crisis. Discussions about mandatory reporting laws, access to counseling services, and the role of law enforcement in preventing abuse gained momentum, with many citing Vanessa's case as a catalyst for change. In prison, Vanessa found a sense of purpose in her advocacy work. She began participating in programs aimed at helping incarcerated women rebuild their lives, mentoring others who had experienced trauma and abuse. Her story resonated with many of her fellow inmates, who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles. Vanessa's resilience and determination to make a difference inspired those around her, earning her the respect of both her peers and the prison staff. As the years passed, Vanessa's relationship with her children remained strong. Ethan and Lily visited her regularly, their bond with their mother unshaken by the events that had transpired. For them, Vanessa was not defined by the crime she had committed, but by the love and sacrifice she had shown as a mother. She did what she thought was right, Ethan said in an interview years later. She protected us when no one else could. That's what matters. Vanessa's eventual release from prison marked the beginning of a new chapter for her family. Though the scars of the past would never fully heal, they were determined to move forward together. Vanessa continued her advocacy work, speaking at events and sharing her story in the hopes of preventing similar tragedies. Her message was clear: no family should ever have to endure what hers had, and no child should ever be left unprotected. The case of Vanessa Larkins remains a powerful reminder of the complexities of justice and the profound impact of trauma on human behavior. It challenges us to consider the difficult choices people make in moments of desperation and to reflect on the ways we can better support those who are most vulnerable. For Vanessa, her story is not just about the crime she committed, it's about the love she had for her children, the pain of betrayal, and the hope for a better future. The story of Vanessa Larkins is one that lingers in the minds of all who hear it. It's a tale of love, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of a single moment of rage. For some, Vanessa's actions were a tragic but understandable response to an unimaginable situation. For others, they were a step too far, a line that should never have been crossed. Regardless of where one stands, her case forces us to confront difficult questions about justice, morality, and the lengths to which a parent will go to protect their child. Vanessa's journey is far from over. Though she has paid a heavy price for her actions, she continues to fight for a better future, not just for herself, but for others who have faced similar struggles. Her story serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, compassion, and the need for systemic change to protect the most vulnerable among us. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey here at True Crime Stories Arena. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in Vanessa's shoes? Until next time, stay safe and take care.